Hey everyone, for today's video, as you can see, we're doing something a little different. I kind of wanted to see what it'd be like if I were to just record my screen and then actually talk to you guys about what I think about the units here, rather than kind of giving an idea, but not really showing as much as I think I'd want to. Let me know what kind of videos you guys are into, but since I believe the maintenance for the next part is coming out in like 2 days, I wanted to go over both of them, but I didn't want to really make like two videos since I kind of covered them like a couple days ago, and I think that would be repetitive, so I wanted to go over both of them in the same video. Anyways, kind of starting with Ubel, you know what I mean? Her art, whatever. Loki kind of messed with this more than this, I'm not gonna lie. But regardless, we do know she's an Earth human. Her slots, pretty solid. A lot of people were talking about the fact that as a art genner on her true art, she does give art gen, but she doesn't have a 5-star support. And truth be told, that is definitely kind of unfortunate. Although we have seen units that don't have it and they end up working anyways, like Ilya. She doesn't have a support slot and she works. But she is, of course, more damage oriented, as is Ubel. But regardless, they're okay slots. The defense slot is solid, but do not LB7. Her skill gives her some arts and a damage resist debuff that's pretty solid. I can't say there's anything too bad about that. As for her arts, she does get some arts gauge passively for 12 seconds, and then everyone gets a 100% super arts damage buff and a 50% accuracy buff. It's pretty nice if you kind of want to buff the team as well as give herself arts gen passively. I mean, there's really not much for me to say about this. And truth be told, I haven't really seen much gameplay with her. I mean, obviously it isn't a JP part of the game right now, but I mean, either people just haven't been getting lucky or just nobody really wants her, you know? As for her true arts, she lowers crit resist and gives allies 6 arts a second when they're above 50% HP, which does mean that, wait, she's type E? Type E is the crossover art gen. If I'm correct, type E shouldn't be above 50%. It should be type F, just like Ilya. I want to say that's wrong because generally speaking, units that increase arts gauge depending on allies being above 50% HP should be type F, and normal units that don't have, a certain type of condition will just be type E, like literally anybody, like Freerin, any crossover unit. I want to say that's type F, although if that is type E, that would be a crazy nerf. But I'm going to go off of the assumption it's type F and this is just a typo. But this is obviously really good. It lowers crit resist. It gives allies arts gauge. What more can you really ask for? That's like, what, 150 arts? So gonna be really good for sure. As for her super arts, it increases her accuracy and lowers enemies' earth resist by 150% with a 170,000 damage modifier. That is actually quite a bit. I mean, although all things considered for a unit made right now, it's not really that crazy. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong, 170,000 is a lot, but it's not as much as we've been seeing. And like I mentioned 100 times in my Ubel video, this literally just feels like Sagiri to me. And now that I'm actually here, I can actually show why that is. So Sagiri passively, of course, gives herself accuracy, and on her super art lowers earth resist. Ubel just happens to have both of those on her art at varying higher degrees, accuracy and earth resist down. They also both give arch gen, obviously, on true art, but here's the thing with Sagiri, she has a defense slot without the LB7. Again, an arch gen with no support slot, at least 5-star. But she ended up working pretty well, all things considered, I'm not gonna lie. especially considering, like I said, she gives physical resist by 30%. That's really good for an art gener. Although 3 arts a second is pretty lackluster, but it's whatever. I mean, this is still really strong, don't get me wrong. For Earth teams, they're going to love that. As for her passives, she does give 70 arts to Earth allies. She gets 50% human damage and some status element resist. Nothing too crazy. I wonder why they even really wasted a passive slot for just 30% at the very least. I'd rather they make it 100%, but whatever. This, it goes without saying, is going to be really good if you're running a mono Earth team. And the human damage is nice. I mean, most enemies, at least giant bosses, in terms of like mines and harder content, is going to be bigger things that aren't human, but there is certainly the fair share of hard human quest. So yeah, I won't go too crazy on that. For her true weapon, lowers earth resist and magic resist. That's pretty unique. That's around like a 60% debuff in total. Although I can't say if this actually stacks with other units that might have a debuff on their true art for earth resist or magic resist. If it does, it's obviously good. If not, it's just kind of lackluster in the sense that if she's giving you 150% earth resist down on super art, but then this doesn't stack, or somebody else is giving like 100% magic resist down and this doesn't stack, then this is like almost useless. If nobody else is doing that, don't get me wrong, this is going to be insanely strong because that's a 60% debuff. But passively as well, it gives her some damage and arts gauge up. So if you're going to run her, you of course want this for that arts a second and damage. But that's if you happen to get her. But in general, I kind of mentioned this in my last video for her as well, but she is going to really only kind of work on Earth teams. To show you some of the units I would put her with, let's see what we got here. I said potentially Veldora, Liza, War God Fenn if you're really fiending, you know what I mean? Evil Eye. Who else? I don't really see anyone else here working. Maybe I'm gonna check her kit out, but I really doubt it's gonna work. And here's the thing, again, like I mentioned, yo, what are these goofy ads, bruh? Okay, any more ads? Okay, no. But as I mentioned here, if her Archen is type E, that's an insane nerf. Like, I don't think you guys understand how crazy that is, because this should be type F. I'm just gonna stop wailing on that. It's literally not that deep. It's a nerf if it's type B. If it's type F, that which is the assumption I'm going off of, then cool. Because in that case, she can be ran with Evil Eye, who I think is almost really required to be ran with her. First of all, you have the super arts, which is type E. It gives 120 arts to the team and magic damage. Keep in mind, Ubel is indeed a magic DPS, so you of course want magic damage buffing. And this is just, if this does stack with her, this is insane, you know what I mean? For Earth teams, don't even get me started with her art. 20% damage resist and then an additional 20% for Earth units. I mean, that's a 40% damage resist debuff just off of her alone. Not even anything else. And then you have this, as if the damage wasn't already crazy enough. Earth allies damaged by 100%. That is nasty work. Like, actually. Who else did I put here? She's really more so, unfortunately, more nuke-oriented. So no, I definitely would not put her there. War God Fenn is just, he's the staple, you know what I mean? He's going to have your Archgen, your Equip CT on this, insane slots. He gets arts, damage resist while leader, passive arts at the start. I mean, he's literally the bread and butter, and if you have nobody else for Mono Earth, you have him. But if you happen to have Liza Valentine's, low-key a crazy art, I'm not gonna lie. Quick side topic. I don't know why, but Anyways, 50 arts, 10-second heal with 10% a second. That's an insane heal, and considering that Evil Eye would be giving a 40% damage resist, buff to the entire Earth team, this is going to be even better because now your team's taking even less damage. They're healing up a ton. I mean, she even has a cleanse, a magic resist buff to the team. You really isn't anything you can't like. She even increases, I didn't even know she increased that. Okay. HP recovery, so they just heal even more. Who else was I talking about? Veldora. See, the reason I include him, which you may be like, yo, why are you including a DPS when you have Ubel? And the thing is, Ubel certainly is a good DPS, don't get me wrong, but she doesn't have as much damage as I think a DPS should have. Normally, DPS have passives that increase their own damage, but really the only damage buffing she has in her kit is going to be this. But that's buffing the entire team. And even her super art is an earth resist debuff, which is for the entire team. Nothing about her kit is increasing just her own damage. She lowers crit resist. She's just buffing the team, which is good, don't get me wrong. That's great for Mono Earth. But it doesn't necessarily make her a DPS. So if you run her alongside, Valentine's Liza, maybe War God Fern or Evil Eye, in my opinion, I'd do Liza and Evil Eye. Then the final unit you can have is Veldora, reason being, not even looking at the defense slot, he's a DPS. He gives damage, he does damage 200,000. He gets damage up based on his attack, so you already are kind of knowing this is going to do a ton, especially if you cycle his arts, which gives him attack, or was that his true arts? If you cycle his true arts, he also gives paralysis and freeze resist to, I believe, Earth allies, so you of course want to run him with an Earth team. But his damage is just going to go insane because he's giving defense ignore, he's getting 200% damage for the team. If she's a human, yeah, that buff is actually going to go to, what's her face? Ubel. Because she's a human, you know what I mean? So she's getting buffed by him. I believe she gives damage as well, yeah. 100% sure, it's not super crazy and there are no other gods in the team. But don't get me wrong, that's a 100% damage buff. Unless you just want to spam this, I wouldn't even blame you if you just spammed her true art. And then you spam her super arts and then art. Maybe this, but you don't really need her to be stronger. You want to buff Veldora and have Veldora buff Ubel, who's going to be debuffing for the enemy, But that's kind of the team you want to run. Equips, I won't really get into because you can kind of run whatever these days. I low-key want to move on to Fern because I feel like I've taken forever for a unit that is fairly lackluster. Yeah, let's move on to Fern. So, again, mentioning the art, I'm not gonna lie, this art is high-key hard. This is significantly better than whoever decided to draw this. I'm not trying to hate, but this is really not great. This is the first crossover, I think, that the base arts are better than the SP art. Even Freerin has this problem. How are you going to make the true art better than the super art? That's nasty work, especially with this costing $10. $10. Anyways, moving on to her slots. They're pretty okay. Not worth an LB7, although that would be nice. This heal slot is really good. If I were able to find... I don't even have a clue what this is called, low-key. I'm not even going to try. But I believe one of the water relics is a heal slot. There's also a 6-star heal slot. I said 6-star heal slot. There's a 6-star water relic as well. So she can hold 2 of that, which, I mean, these days the water relics aren't the best. But if you want to try to run all that for the equip CT and stats up, she can definitely hold some of that. As for the rest of her kit, this gives her some arts. She gets some arts as well if it crits. That's what, 100 arts every 14 seconds. That's what, around 7 arts a second? Really strong. Obviously, you have this. It gives arts and damage resist. The first time I saw this, I thought it was kind of good. And don't get me wrong, it is good. But looking at the rest of her kit, specifically her true arts, I don't ever really see this being used, especially if you run her with units that I think she should be ran with, in this case, Beta. Because with Beta, she actually gives damage resist to the team. Let me check where. On her true arts, and looking how it's base damage resist, this probably won't stack, and the only reason you'd use it is for the arts. And something as measly as 20 arts really just is not worth it. So if you're pairing her with Beta, don't even, literally, this doesn't matter, in my opinion. And looking at her true arts, every time she uses it, it stacks up to 350k, resets using either her art or super art. I do wish it was just her art, because that way you can then use her super art without worrying, but with a 350k, modifier, I understand why they were afraid. Because once you pop her super art, which lowers water resist based on her HP up to 150%, that's not too bad. But once you pop this, you can just keep spamming this for like a minute. And especially on mono water, which has so much arts gen, she's going to be getting this back just so fast. It's not even funny. And that seems to be her, kind of strategy. Pop this, then you pop this like 17 times. Maybe not that much, but you get the idea. Her passives, she gets 30% super crit above 80% HP, or 100% crit above 50% HP. This, I definitely do like. This is nice, especially in terms of higher endgame content, where there might be crit resistance buffs, or they might have resistance of some sort. You pair this with crit resist debuffs, and it's going to be pretty easy for her to crit. Of course, that means that you could even just not bring a crit buffer if you're solely relying on this, Her damage against demons is definitely solid as well. I can't lie. B output up for water units is kind of whatever. But let's check her true weapon before I head into teams. This is 20% stackable water damage, and if they're human, it's another 20% for 35 seconds. Wow, okay. First of all, this is kind of insane, because you're already guaranteed to get 2 stacks, considering it's 35 seconds and the CT is 30. So that by itself, if you run it on her, is 80% damage, but now you run somebody that gives equip CT, this is gonna get up there really fast. Not even to mention if you run this on another water human that has 2 magic slots, they're giving themselves 80% damage, and by the time they come back around, that's 160%. So definitely pick this up even if you don't have her. As for if it's used by her, she gets 30% damage and skill CT speed. Damage is of course always great, and that skill CT speed is going to help her get back that skill to give her more arts, which literally you cannot go wrong with. As for teams you're going to want to run her on now, there is a lot you can do for mono water, okay? She is, of course, oh damn. She is, of course, magic, so we do want to work around that. So that means we're not going to be bringing units like Roy who buff physical damage. We could potentially bring her in. Hauka definitely. That man is just a beast. Beta. That seems to be... What is this ad, bro? Okay. Yeah. So, Valerie, as we know, is just a crazy damage buffer for the entire team and a DPS. But here's the thing. If you run her alongside her, I don't see a reason, considering, well, she's going to be your DPS, and you don't ever really want to run 2 DPS. I understand if one is buffing the other, which she can definitely buff the team, 200%. That's crazy. And defense ignore. But considering Fern is going to be, oh my goodness, bro. Considering Fern is going to have that passive crit, there's really no reason I think you should run her. So actually looking at it now, probably not. Yeah, she's her own DPS. Oh my goodness, I wish I got her when she came out. Anyways, Hauka, I don't even think I need to really mention. Like, I'll just list off a billion art gen, especially for the leader. 300% crit damage, which Fern is getting crit passively, so he doesn't even need to use this. But now, if there's a boss with crit resist, he's lowering it, and then she has crit, so now she can crit on that stage, as well as a water resist debuff, an accuracy buff, human allies attack up. I mean, he gets equipped CT, he has insane slots. There really, nothing more has to be said. He's literally needed. And then beta. So there's a lot going on with beta, mostly survivability, but also arts gen, because she gives damage resist, she gives arts gen, but then also she increases all allies magic damage times number of water allies times 80%, which means a 320% damage buff for the team just for existing, as long as they're all water, of course, as well. And then she'll also have that barrier, damage resist debuff, great slots, can't go wrong. And not even to mention this. Look at that. You put Fern next to beta, that's a 150% damage buff on top of her 320%. Plus 300% from him. Let's count that. That's 300, 620, 770. She doesn't actually damage buff herself, which they were smart to do because water has so much damage buffing, it's not funny. That's a 720% damage buff, not even including literally everything else that they're getting. Attack, water resist debuffing. And then I'd have to like kind of find a fourth unit. And to be honest, in mono water, it's kind of hard because most of them are kind of paired for physical. I'm not even gonna lie, I'm literally checking their kits because I was out of the game for like a couple of crossovers, so I don't know what they do. Yeah, I'm not really seeing anyone here that you would want or that's like necessarily insane to use, you know what I mean? To be honest, you can kind of really run whoever. You know, like, I don't want to say run Roy because he gives physical damage. He does have that defense slot and he'll be giving a type B arch gen, but that's really all he'll provide because then it'll just be physical damage and then a physical resist debuff, but the rest of the team is magic. So quite literally, I really don't know who you want to run. You can put any fourth unit and that team is gonna just destroy. If you want literally like infinite damage resist, you can put Emiya, but I don't think there's a single boss in the game that needs that level of damage resist of Shiro and beta. That's just so overkill, it's not even funny. Maybe Sistina. What does she do? No, it's whatever. You get the idea. I don't want this video to run on forever because this is low-key one of my longest videos I've done just because I've low-key been rambling. Let me know if you want to see more videos like this because I definitely think this was a lot of fun. And if I'm being honest, it's a lot easier to edit videos like this considering I don't have to find like my gameplay or whatever. But and I get to just go around and live kind of reference, you know, other units, show you guys what they do right here. So when I'm mentioning things that some newer players might not know about, you can kind of all get in on that action. But let me know what your ideas are for them because their banner will be coming really soon. I believe the 15th after maintenance, so the 16th early in the morning. But she is definitely a really good unit. Don't get me wrong. Ubel is kind of iffy. I would be happy if you got her, especially if you have the team to run her, because along with Evil Eye and all of those units, Liza, Earth Liza, she's gonna really have a lot of fun, paired with Veldora to buff him even more. But I think she's the true prize of the crossover. Not of the crossover of this part. We all know who the real prize of the crossover is. But yeah. Oh, and a quick note. Do not buy this SP art. Don't give them the $10 for that. This is so good. This should have been the SP art low key. And I bet people would have bought this too. But yeah, summon for her. Should you pity? Only pity if you're gonna be going for free Ren. Only do a 50 if you're trying to get her. Or even her. But yeah, don't chase any of these. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are about the video though. And like I said before, if you enjoy this format of video, because I know it's a lot different than what I normally do. Tell me if it's boring or if it needs more stuff. Be sure to like and sub for more, and thanks for watching.